Hello, alpha males, and welcome back to the Alpha Male Podcast. Let us gather together in this virtual tribe as men, unapologetic, made in the image of our Creator, strong, dominant, in control. We've done some not so fun topics recently, so I thought it would be kind of nice to revisit some gear. I think some of our favorite things about getting together as men is talking about gear. So, this will be a kind of a gear episode in a different way. It'll be some of the most overrated and underrated gear, manly gear. If you want to skip the bio, skip around 3 minutes and 45 seconds. That's about 7 fast forwards on most of the players that I've seen that are 30 seconds. You can skip that little forward ahead button 7 times, and that'll bring you in the body of the show. Don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a review of the podcast. First and foremost, I am a servant of God, preacher, a fisher of men. God is number one in my life, and everything that I do in this podcast is no different, and I don't apologize for that. A little bit about me in the background. I grew up, I guess what you would consider a heathen. Didn't grow up a Christian, but I grew up in the southeastern United States, what most would consider very poor. Hunting and fishing and shooting. Joined the Marine Corps at 17, did a couple of combat tours in Iraq. After my combat tours in Iraq, I was an urban warfare instructor for the United States Marine Corps under Mojave Viper. I also served in law enforcement for several years in LAPD. I worked patrol assignments and more specialized assignments, where by God's grace, He got me through some nasty places in this world of war zones and some of the nastiest streets in the country. Not because I am better, because God chose to have mercy on me and had a purpose for me, and I'm thankful for that. After my time in law enforcement, I was a private contractor for federal government, for a 3-letter government agency I won't specify, doing private contracting work. I'm very much involved in guns and gunfighting. I also served in the U.S. Army, both full-time and part-time National Guard. I should say my primary MOS is in both branches of the military or infantry, as of one sort or another. Specialized infantry in the Marine Corps and an MOS that no longer exists. I started competition shooting even before I joined the Marine Corps at 17. I won my first gold medal even before I joined the Marine Corps at 17. I've been blessed by God with the talents He's given me to win more shooting competitions than I can remember. I've won most of my competitions in rifle and pistol, but I've also competed in archery and shotgun and even muzzleloader, knife throwing, hatchet throwing. I've competed in all that. I've also been a professional big game hunter and guide. Like I said, I grew up hunting and fishing and shooting. I've done it to put meat on the table because I like to put food on the table with the talents God's given me. I don't apologize for that. I've done it as a professional hunter and guide. I've slain all manner of beast and guided for all manner of beast. Bear and wolf and elk and deer, mule deer, whitetail deer. I've slain ram and fallow deer and countless animals, and I don't apologize for that either. FBI certified, firearms instructor, NRA, and a bunch of other 3-letter government agency certifications. Blessed be the Lord my rock, who trains my hands for war and my fingers for battle. Psalm 144. I've been blessed to be the commander of a tactical team, an SRT, special response team, in a large metropolitan area, where our primary job was to stop active shooters. But again, first and foremost, I'm a servant of God, called by God to share the good news, preacher, a fisher of men. With that, we will roll into the day's topic. Well, for the most underrated and overrated of gear, I don't think it'll be any surprise to anybody that's listened for any length of time or that knows me The first one, most underrated, the Bible and your translation of the Bible. Of all the things you give thought to and think about as a man, and this thing's cooler than that thing, and this is the next hot thing, and I gotta have this and that. Have you actually looked into your Bible translation? Have you looked into how accurate it is? Whether it's translated from the Textus Receptus or the Latin Vulgate, or if they even care about a literal translation. Some translations are far better than others. I like for reading the New King James. I also like for literal translation, Young's literal translation from the 1800s. It's hard to read because, Hebrew and Greek may not be in the same sentence structure as we use today as far as nouns and verbs and things. But if you want a literal translation as to what is this saying in the original text, I really like Young's literal translation. And today, with the internet, you can look up a literal ancient Hebrew word for word translation if you want to go that deep on a certain passage. What is this saying? Not what does somebody else interpret that this is saying, not as what does my church say that this is saying, what does this say, period? What is God's word? So I'd encourage you to give some more thought to that if you are not deeply thinking about that. For something that is also, I think, often overlooked, maybe underrated, is footwear. If you have choice in footwear as a man, wear some practical footwear if you have a choice. I know sometimes you have to wear a suit or whatever, but even then, you can pick out dress shoes that you can run in. When I was, corporate management and I had to wear a suit, I would still wear shoes that I could take off sprinting in if I had to. So give some thought to your footwear. That's important, especially if you're, tell yourself as being a survivalist, a prepper. Can you run in the shoes that you have? What if something happens and you're stuck in the shoes that you have? Probably don't want loafers with flat soles for the apocalypse. Of all the thought we give to guns and this thing and that thing and this knife, probably much more likely that you're going to have to run. And just a little pet peeve of mine, people that say that, oh, I can't run. What they really mean is that they don't run. There are some exceptions. If you're a paraplegic or a quadriplegic, I'll give you a pass. Let's say if you're over, 80. But if not, you probably can't run because you don't run. Or you don't do any kind of cardio or exercise. It's like anything else. The wife said, rule number 1 of Zombieland, cardio. But give some thought to your footwear. Can you run in it? If you really did have to make a long trek, if for some reason your car didn't start, or there was a traffic jam and nobody's car was moving, are the shoes that you have the ones that you would want? Like I said, even if you have to wear dress shoes, they make good practical dress shoes that you could run in. That they make. The ones that I have, I think, are Skechers. And they look like really nice dress shoes. Thankfully, I don't have to wear a suit anymore and a tie. But those shoes, for what I had to do, were good for sprinting. The shoes I wear day to day are good hiking/running boots. They are boots, but I could definitely run in them and have run in them. So I'd say that footwear is often underrated. Next thing I'd say that's often underrated is a good belt. Especially if you everyday carry a firearm, as I think a lot of us alpha males do. If you carry a gun day to day, then a good quality belt is really important. It's a system. Your gun, your holster, your belt, your mag pouch, your pants. Wearing the same pants day to day, maybe not exactly, but the same brand, the same make, that have the same belt loops in the same place, so your gun is always in the same place. Consistency is one of the keys to speed and accuracy. Likewise, a belt. Yeah, it could be a nice leather belt, it could be a good web belt, it could be anything like that, but a good, stiff, everyday carry belt. Even if you don't carry a gun day to day, a good belt that can double as a weapon, that can double as a lot of things, double as a tourniquet. Think about these things. Of all the things you probably spend money on Amazon, is your belt a legit good belt? If you don't have a reason for other things, and there are other belts out there, I'm not talking about like a full war belt. If you want a war belt episode, there's a whole episode. One of the very first ones was on war belts. I can't remember if it was the Alpha Male podcast or Gunfighter Life, but there's a whole episode on war belts. I'm talking about your day-to-day CCW, Armed Citizen, or just good manly belt. My number one recommendation is the 511 TDU. You know, I don't get any kickbacks. I don't have any sponsorships. They're just a good, solid belt. They would, if you got one, they would be fine in a suit. They would be fine in a pair of slacks. They would be fine in pretty much anything. They don't look super tactical, but you certainly could wear them with tactical pants. One side is like green or brown, and the other side is going to be black. And generally, those will go with just about any outfit. Unless you're wearing male leggings, in which case this is probably not the podcast for you. Repent of your ways and get some silkies. The next one, most overrated, especially for young men, is hygiene gear. Like all the soaps and the body washes and the shampoo. Get a bar of soap and be done with it. Like a real bar of soap, like made with animal fat or made with vegetable fat. Fat, salt, like real soap. Get a bar of soap, and that is what you need. Scrub all your man parts with it. Wash your body with it. Don't need all this random stuff. Totally overrated. Forget about all the ridiculous marketing. You really think some woman's going to be attracted to you because you smell like an Irish Spring? Like whatever Axe flavor of the week is? Think about this in the reverse. If you saw a girl and she was just hideously unattractive to you, would it matter if she smelled like roses? No. It's the same for women. Women are not attracted to flowers. They are not attracted to spring rain. They are attracted to strong, dominant alpha males. I will caveat that by don't smell like a homeless person, but you need a bar of soap. On the hygiene, I'll go for underrated. Part of your kit, part of your, probably not everyday carry, but vehicle carry, things like that, in your bug out bag, baby wipes. If you've ever been deployed in the Middle East or ever been deployed somewhere where you haven't showered for months, weeks, even days, you'll know how nice baby wipes are. A baby wipe bath does not take the place of a good hot shower, but it is certainly better than nothing. Especially when you have sand all in your parts and sand all over the place and things like that, a good couple of baby wipes goes a long way. So I think if you're any kind of outdoorsman, any kind of man where you go places where you don't have access to showers for days at a time, those wipes are a great asset. There's a mechanical removal of dirt. A little tactical tip I'll throw in the middle is that those also work pretty good. Most baby wipes on guns, for wiping down guns, dust and dirt on guns. Let them dry out before you assemble them, but those do work pretty good. The next one is going to be a little bit of an irony. I would say it's both underrated and overrated. For guys that EDC, they might carry a gun, they might carry a knife, they might even carry a spare mag. But do you carry a flashlight? I'd say a flashlight is a very important and probably one of my most used EDC items. So I'd say underrated, having a flashlight with you. Also underrated, training with that flashlight and your firearm, like knowing how to neck index, FBI hold, the Chapman. There's a bunch of different flashlight holds in training with your handgun, training with your long gun with a flashlight. I'd say that is also underrated. A lot of people that tout themselves as EDCers and armed citizens in a well-regulated militia, they don't train shooting at night with their handgun and their flashlight. Do you want to illuminate your sights? Do you not want to illuminate your sights? There's a whole bunch that goes into that, but I think that is often overlooked. And I'd say totally overrated is the amount of lumens. Guys that are into flashlights tend to get crazy stupid with this. Like, yours is 500 lumens, mine's 1,000 lumens. And this is one of those cases, in my experience from tactical training, where more is not always more. More is sometimes detrimental. If you've ever cleared a small room or a bathroom or a room with white walls with a super bright light, you'll know that you don't always want that high amount of lumens. It may blind your opponent, but it may also very well blind you. I'm not telling you to not have a super bright light in your car or on your long gun, on your AR for long shots or things like that. For hunting coyotes at nights if it's legal. But for day-to-day EDC and for room clearing with your gun in an urban environment, I'd say a couple hundred lumens is about right. Anything more than that to me is actually less as far as effectiveness goes, because I want to be able to see after I turn on that light. The next one, ironically, is also underrated and overrated. And that's going to be clothing. Now, I am not about to give men fashion advice. Most of my clothes are probably one of two colors, coyote brown or OD green. But I will say stop worrying so much about the fashion and this brand and that brand. That's all ridiculous and garbage, and they're probably made in the same sweatshop in China. I would say the brand, the style, what's in vogue, whatever, it doesn't matter. It does not matter. You know, if you're trying to attract a girl by the brand of clothes that you wear, that's probably not the girl that you want. That's a pretty superficial thing. So I'd say overrated. I'd say underrated. Start, instead of looking at the logo on your clothes, start looking at the material of your clothes. I think it is important as a man to watch and be ready all the time. You know, most fabrics, most shirts and stuff that you get, a lot of times are just the cheapest, garbagest mix of materials. For all practical purposes, day-to-day life, and in an emergency, your number one shelter is going to be your clothing. So that is not overrated. In fact, it's often underrated. Who cares what the brand is? Stop looking at the logo and flip and look at the label. Is it 100% wool? I cannot tell you how much I value a good 100% wool shirt. They are very, very nice. Also, I really like for wet environments, for sweaty environments, for hot weather, 100% polyester. I don't like the garbage polyester cotton blends. You should not let a garment of different sorts, such as wool and linen, come upon you. When I want wool, I want wool. When I want 100% polyester, I want polyester. When I want acrylic, I want acrylic. I know what those fabrics do. I know what they're good for. I know what they're not good for. That's important to me. Whatever logo is stamped on there, not important to me. You know, your car breaks down on a freezing cold highway in the Rockies, which has happened to me. Probably not going to care about whether your shirt's American Eagle or Abercrombie and Fitch or whatever. Probably are going to care about if it's wool or not, because you're going to be cold. The next thing, supplements. Overrated. Unless you consider peanut butter a supplement, then it's underrated. No, but seriously, I would advise against all the pre-workout and all those kind of crazy things. If you're so tired when you go to the gym, just man up and work out anyway. If you're tired and you do a push-up, you're still doing a push-up. And you're doing it without a bunch of drugs in your system. If you're chronically tired, you probably need to fix the problem and get more sleep, not drug yourself to get through a workout. If you're talking about just straight, protein, extra protein in your diet when you don't have time for a meal or something, I've got no problem with that. No problem with a multivitamin. If you're drugging yourself to get through a workout, I would seriously be circumspect and look at that. Being physically fit, being healthy is a long-term game. It's a long play. There's no quick fix to that. Another thing I would say that's underrated is a spare magazine if you carry a semi-automatic handgun, or a reload even if you carry a revolver. A lot of people focus on gun, and they might carry a gun, but they don't carry a reload. One of the number one failures, or most of the top failures in a semi-automatic handgun, are caused by faulty magazines. Magazines wear out. They are a disposable part. Not like every time you use them, but they do wear out. Might be a good idea to have a spare magazine, not because you need a bunch of ammo to run around and play Rambo, because that magazine might be bad, and the best way to fix that, if you need to, is to have another magazine. The odds of them both failing at the exact same time are pretty low. Another very underrated thing I think is a good quality water filter, both, one for your house, like a household water filter, and one for being portable, being in maybe not your EDC. I don't carry one in my pocket, but I generally have one in my little EDC bag, in my big bug out bag, and in my war belt, I have small water filters. Likewise, I usually have a backup of iodine tablets. One of the number one killers in a natural disaster is dirty water. And even though you can turn on your tap and get water, you can't always count on it to be clean. Case in point, Flint, Michigan. You have a way to purify water for your household. Don't just trust the government that the water that comes out of your tap is pure. That's on you as a man to provide for yourself and your family clean water. Also, likewise, on the go. Again, if there is some kind of disaster, one of the number one killers in a lot of disasters is dirty water. If you're into preparedness and stuff, you're probably into the tactical gear and the cool knife and the K-bar and the Glock's better than the SIG or the SIG's better than the Glock, or you gotta have at least 20 rounds in your magazine and blah, blah, blah. That's all whatever it is. You can look as cool as you want with your multicam camo and your plate carrier and your AR and your super tricked out Glock, but if you're bent over and can't stand up straight because you have dysentery, you're not very tactical anymore. The next one I'll say that is underrated is ammo, specifically defensive ammo. A lot of people give a thought to, I want this gun because it holds 2 more rounds, and I had the G2 and now the G3's out and I want it, and I had the X21 but now the X22's out, and I'm just making stuff up. I gotta have that when it's got the scallop slide serrations in the front. But this one comes with this, and this gun comes with that. If you do, and I hope that you don't, but if you do ever have to be in a defensive gunfight, a gun encounter, especially with your handgun, the one thing that's going to cause that damage, assuming you don't beat them to death with a handgun, the one thing that's going to cause the damage is the ammunition in your magazine. I can't stress enough the importance of, does your defensive ammo shoot to the same point of aim, point of impact, as your carry ammo? Does your practice ammo and carry ammo shoot in the same place? So many people I see, they'll go and buy the cheapest, garbageous 9mm ammo and shoot with it and load their gun up, maybe with defensive ammo they've never even tried. What are the odds that that's going to shoot in the same place? That's not really how physics works. It may be like some weird coincidence, but I would not count on it. Does your ammunition hit in the same place as your practice ammunition? Training with whatever the garbageous, cheapest ammo you can get, and buying your defensive load based on what looks good in ballistics gel, having never trained with it and practiced with it, is kind of like this. You've been training for a marathon, and on the way to the marathon, you stop by Walmart and you grab the first pair of shoes that you can find, whether they be flip-flops or work boots, and you're like, I'm just going to run a marathon in these. That's not a good plan. That's kind of like just planning on being on a gunfight with whatever defensive ammunition you have in your magazine. So don't let that be you. That might be for the average dude that, is into guns, but not for an alpha male. Unacceptable. Train with your defensive ammo, or buy a load that's paired like the Spear Lawman and whatever grain weight you use, and the Spear Gold Dots. They're designed to have the same profile, so they feed the same, they shoot the same ballistically. And they're not the only ones. Federal has products like that. Winchester has products like that. I don't really care. I'm not endorsed by anybody. I'm saying get around and practice with it. That shoots the same point of aim, point of impact, and has the same feed profile, meaning it feeds the same, and actually functions in your gun. Like, feeds the same primers, all that stuff. Same velocity as your duty ammo. Give some real thought to that. There's a lot of good ballistic gel chest, but remember to keep it grounded in reality. Number one, the best performing bullet won't do any good if you don't put it where it needs to go. That number one is training and marksmanship, and number two is, like we said, choosing a round that shoots the same point of aim, point of impact. That where your sights are, if you shoot with a combat hold, let's say, wherever the dot is on your front sight, that's where that round goes. That's where your defensive round goes. The best performing bullet won't do any good if you don't put it where it needs to go. Also, realize a lot of those ballistic tests and a lot of that ammunition, especially if it's designed for law enforcement, is designed for a full-size gun. If you're carrying a super small subcompact gun, hollow points and expanding ammunition is velocity-based. Don't just assume because a police officer carries it or because it's designed for the FBI and a full-size gun that it's a good choice for you if you're not carrying that same gun, that same barrel length, same velocity. Because it may not be. You got to put a little bit more research into it. Well, men, with that, I hope this has been a good discussion, a good thinking discussion, and fairly lighthearted. I know we kind of ended on a pretty serious note, but hopefully, with everything going on and all the craziness in the world right now, we get together in this tribe and think about some other stuff. Tactical tip of the day. I was actually practicing earlier today on a full size, I guess full size from the waist up, rubber mannequin with body armor, practicing my dry fire drills. Pretty much everybody listening to this at defensive carries probably knows the Mozambique drill: to the chest, one of the head, to the chest, one of the head. But there's drills that have come out recently that I've practiced with the last several years. Probably don't practice as often as I should, but I do from time to time. There's different responses for different threats. You may just want to give classic bill drill just 4 or 6 shots as fast as you can, center mass, for a defensive engagement. Say somebody running at you with a knife. You may, if somebody's wearing body armor like the mannequin I was practicing on earlier today, 2 to the pelvic girdle, 1 to the head. If you see they're wearing body armor, what are you going to do, especially if you have a handgun? Why are you going to waste time putting rounds in body armor? 2 to the pelvic girdle, 1 to the head. Generally, a good pelvic girdle shot will a lot of times immobilize that target. You know, when I was in the Marine Corps, we learned how to take out tanks. It's what's called a mobility kill. It means the threat can no longer move. And if he can't move and you can, that gives you a big advantage. But 2 to the pelvic girdle and 1 to the head, that's a different kind of defensive response. And again, maybe useful in a situation where somebody's wearing body armor. So maybe practice that next time. You know, if you practice on a B-27 or whatever defensive silhouette target that you practice on, maybe draw where the pelvis would be. Practice your classic Mozambique drill, 2 to the chest, 1 to the head. Practice your bill drill, 6 rounds center mass as fast as you can from the draw. And then give some practice to the pelvic girdle, 2 to the pelvic girdle, 1 to the head. That's your tactical tip of the day. You'll find this in Joshua chapter 1. Your wives, your little ones, and your cattle shall remain in the land which Moses gave you on this side Jordan. But ye shall pass before your brethren armed, all the mighty men of valor, and help them. Another translation puts it this way: but all your mighty men of valor must be armed for battle to cross over ahead of your brothers and help them. With that, men, I'm going to say thanks for listening. Have a blessed day. If you want to, check out goodshepherdtraining.com.